What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content here on my channel, then make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can help decide what direction the content on my channel goes in the foreseeable future. So Justice League of America Rebirth is, man, this story's awesome. I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's the best thing coming out of DC Rebirth right now. It's a pretty strong contender it's a pretty strong contender in terms of where it stands. And the reason why is because this is kind of like a throwback to Justice League International, and that's why it works so well. For those of you guys who don't know, a little bit of a journey back in time here. With Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC kind of looked around, with a post-crisis landscape, figuring out what it is that they wanted to do, and they wanted to sort of change up the status quo. And that went for a lot of characters. It was returning Superman back to being the sole survivor of Krypton. It was, taking Green Lantern back to his roots. It was grabbing Batman, making him more dark, more brooding. That was really the way it was for a lot of these characters. But with regards to the Justice League, it was effectively disbanded. What we got in its place was Justice League International. And Justice League International was basically a Batman-led Justice League team with people who normally would never have been able to hold their own comics, Guy Gardner and different guys like that. Now, Guy Gardner's popularity increased because of Justice League International, but at the time, he was considered to be a character who just couldn't hold his own publication. Now, Justice League International at the outset was wildly popular just because of the fact that there was a lot of arguing and bickering, especially between Batman and Guy Gardner, because they had such stubborn personalities and each one thought that they were right. But Batman was the de facto leader. And so what Justice League International did is it actually spun out, several titles, but eventually Justice League of America was returned to its normal status in 1998 with JLA by Grant Morrison. Now, what this does is kind of give us this sort of return to familiarity with Batman's own Justice League team. But remember, at the end of Justice League versus Suicide Squad, the basis behind this was that Batman wanted to form his own team for reasons that weren't initially explained. But we can kind of point to the idea of really DC Universe Rebirth. When Wally West shows back up again, Batman recognizes who he is, and Wally West basically tells him about the button, about the Watchmen button. Batman has been working in the background to try to figure out what's going on with this button. Granted, it's really been taking place off panel, but what Justice League of America Rebirth does is show us the steps that Batman's taking to basically set things in the works to deal with whatever the button is. Because remember, Batman is a man of caution. Batman is a man that always plans ahead. And so the formation of Justice League of America Rebirth, at least as far as I'm aware, as far as we know right now, has really been done by Batman for the purpose of ensuring that if there is some kind of nefarious foe out there that intends to do the DC Universe harm, that he'll have a Justice League team of his own to basically face off against them. This is compounded by the fact that the Justice League was taken over by Maxwell Lord in the Justice League versus Suicide Squad tie-in. So it's really just kind of like a backup team in case the main Justice League team is compromised. It's just, again, a matter of safety nets, a matter of checks and balances in the realm of Batman. But Killer Frost was really his first recruit, and the reason why is because Killer Frost saved everybody's life at the end of Justice League versus Suicide Squad. And so because of that, Batman basically sat down and said, look, sure, she was a villain at one point in time, but if she's done anything here, it's basically show people that she could be a good person. And if she can be a good person, the seeds are there. All they have to do is be nurtured correctly. And that's what he's intending to do here. Now, at this point, we basically switch over to Black Canary. And of course, it's kind of funny to see Black Canary and Killer Frost going at it with each other, because from what we gather, Killer Frost had basically shown up here with the intention of recruiting Black Canary, and Black Canary just freaked and just started attacking her, which is actually kind of funny to see them, fighting one another. It's just kind of a mistaken set of circumstances. But again, it's a little bit of back and forth, and it's basically this idea that not everybody looks at Killer Frost as a person that's turned over a new leaf. When they see her, they immediately see a bad guy. They immediately see a villain, and rightfully so, because of the things that she's done over the course of her career with superpowers. But again, she basically kind of, brings the fight to a halt, basically stops and says, I'm here because of him. I'm here with Batman. Now, the cool thing about this is that Black Canary isn't really a tried and true villain per se. I mean, she was really part of, Batgirl's Birds of Prey, but Batman's connection with Black Canary through Barbara Gordon and her Birds of Prey has really illustrated to Batman the Black Canary is somebody that could keep them all grounded, and that's what he's shooting for. The Justice League of America team is really kind of like a mixed bag of of good guys and bad guys, but it's really more composed of like tough-hitting people than it is people who are just kind of new or just kind of fresh. At least initially that seems to be the case, but as we'll progress, we'll actually find out Batman's going to roll in some relatively fresh faces. But Black Canary is really like a no-nonsense woman the way that she's written in DC Comics. She pulls no punches, she tells things how they are, and Batman says, you will help to keep us honest, you will help to keep us grounded, even if you're telling us things that we don't want to hear. Now, of course, from this point, we transition over to the main man, and that's one of the coolest things about this. We transition over to Lobo. And the cool thing about this is that Black Canary's giving Lobo a run for his money. I mean, she's not really beating the absolute hell out of him so much as she's basically establishing her dominance, doing a little bit of reverse psychology, because remember, Lobo's kind of a man unto himself, right? Like, Lobo kind
kind of does his own thing. He's just kind of out there doing his own thing. Now remember, Lobo exists here because DC basically retconned him in. DC said that Lobo was part of Suicide Squad Zero. He was part of the Suicide Squad that we never knew about. But because of the fact that their mission went awry, because they basically turned against the orders of Amanda Waller, they were brought back in again, and they were basically held in stasis. They were just isolated from the world, which is why we never saw the original version of Lobo in the New 52. We just saw that weird New 52 Lobo that nobody really liked. So what we end up doing is we basically have Black Canary saying, look, I imagine that you probably wouldn't even be interested in joining a team like this, would you? I mean, you don't really have what it takes to be part of a team. Like, you don't really have any gumption. Like, you're just big talk. And again, it's just kind of messy with Lobo. But keep in mind, Lobo's not a fool. Like, Lobo knows what's going on. And even if only for the sake of curiosity, he basically allows Black Canary to play her game. You know, he kind of allows her to go through the motions and says, okay, fine, we'll see what's going on. And the reason why is because I imagine after spending so much time in stasis, so much time in isolation, really Lobo has a desire to experience some measure of belonging. And that's one of the cool things about him is Lobo's a pretty violent guy. He loves tearing stuff up. The guy's really, really cool. But just like anybody else in existence, Lobo needs somewhere to belong. Of course, he didn't feel like he belonged in his own race of people, which is why he killed them all. But he still kind of feels like he needs somewhere to belong. At least that's really the only explanation I can offer here. Either that or Lobo's just downright curious, which I guess is just as possible as anything else. But from here, we switch over to a young guy named Ryan Choi. And Ryan Choi is basically a stand-in for the Atom Ray Palmer. The reason why is because during the Atom one-shot that was part of this lead up to the release of Justice League of America Rebirth, Ryan had basically become the lab assistant of Ray Palmer. And Ray Palmer basically revealed to Ryan that Ray himself was the Atom. He was a superhero. The issue here is that the Atom had basically discovered some kind of fundamental flaw or some screw up with the timescape and discovered what amounts to the microverse, an extremely small universe within the main DC universe. When he went to go investigate it, he basically disappeared. He left a video recording behind, that he had made before he took off to the microverse, and basically tasked Ryan with harnessing his belt and using it for the purpose of finding Ray Palmer, or at least some variation of Ray Palmer's belt, using it for the purpose of finding Ray and bringing him back. And so what this does is really kind of exist in the in-between, in between these moments where Ryan had basically been given this task and when he actually carries it out, but he's basically met by Batman and Lobo. Now, of course, Batman's idea is to find Ray Palmer. It's to find the actual Atom himself. And the reason why is because the Atom's a wildly capable guy. He's definitely someone you want on your side through his intelligence, through his different abilities, and so on and so forth. The issue is they're kind of stuck with Ryan at the moment. But the cool thing about this is that Ryan's very green around the ears. He's very new. He's somebody who can be molded. He's basically a clean slate. And so Batman could basically kind of transform Ryan into somebody that could really be more adaptive and more capable to the team, more conducive to the team, as opposed to Ray Palmer, who would show up with his existing beliefs, his existing views, so on and so forth, what he believes being a superhero is about, and possibly create a source of contention. So it's really just kind of a smart move by Batman. But at this point, we switch over to a guy named Raymond. Now, Raymond Terrell, or Terrell, or however it is you want to pronounce it, is actually a really, really old character with regards to DC. Well, not really old. He's 1990s. I think it's 1992 to be specific. But with regards to the DC landscape post New 52, as far as I'm aware, he hadn't shown up there. But what DC Rebirth does is it basically kind of brings him back from the 90s that says, okay, the story of Raymond is a little bit different, but in terms of what he's capable of, it's still very much the same. The origin story that was given to us initially in his own one-shot, which I think Comic Historian actually has that video up, is that Raymond was basically a kid who just spent his entire life in the dark. And the reason why was because it was discovered at a very early age that he can absorb light energy and use it for different purposes. The problem was that he couldn't control it. He had injured people around him. And so being kept in the dark was really his mom's response to keeping him isolated, to making sure that his powers don't run awry. Now, what ended up happening, of course, is like any teenager, he basically escaped to see the outside world. He was exposed to light and then disappeared, went invisible for 4 years. Now, eventually he reemerged in a bid to stop some crazy guy from trying to attack the mayor at the time. But from that point going forward, Raymond basically operated as the Ray, which is kind of like a community dubbed name that was given to him, somebody that could basically manipulate light energy for a multitude of effects, energy projection, hard light constructs, that kind of a thing. So he's really, really powerful in terms of his abilities. The problem is he's still relatively new to all this. And so meeting Ryan Choi, the person who's been sent to recruit him, Batman tasks Ryan because of the fact that Ryan's a new guy. And so it would make more sense to have a new guy show up as opposed to somebody who might be intimidating like Batman, or somebody who would be likely to screw things up like Lobo, or Black Canary, who would be half inclined to punch Raymond if assuming that he made a pass at her or something along those lines. But again, from this point, we switch over to the Vixen, and this is really the last character that we get who's being introduced into the Justice League of America. Now, Vixen is actually a really cool character, and the reason why is because she's able to tap into what's called the red. Now, the red and the green were relatively new constructs, relatively new concepts. Prior to this, you just had like Swamp Thing, you just had like Poison Ivy, and they were just characters who were out there. But what ended up happening, and I want to say it was Jeff Lemire, but I'm not going to swear to that, but what ended up happening is the red and the green were basically created. They were, designed for the purpose of basically explaining how it is that Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy are able to do the things that they do. And they're basically elementals. They're able to tap into all plant life. The red allows people to tap into animal life. So if an animal existed on the face of the planet Earth, its essence, what it is, continues to live on within the red, and it allows people who can tap into the red to use those different things. So for example, in this instance, Vixen is tapping into the red by way of a bat, which allows her the ability to fly. It grants her echolocation. If she were to tap into like a rhinoceros, she would have the durability of a rhinoceros. If she were to tap into an elephant, she'd have the strength of an elephant. Just, you guys understand, it's just different aspects of animals that are used by individuals who can tap into the red. Now, of course, really with Batman kind of going to her, she's an essential part of the team. And the reason why is because anybody or any organism that ever existed on the face of the earth, whether it's extinct or not, can be tapped into by someone or can be used by someone who can tap into the red. And so Vixen is formidable in terms of her capabilities. At the same time, she's very straightforward. She's very honest. She could be one of these people who could basically be the backbone of the team. And that's why Batman says there is no team without you, because you will be the backbone. You'll be the one that kind of holds things together in case they begin to go awry. And so of course, he's able to grab her, bring her on board. And it's really kind of funny because as soon as we transition to the Justice League of America headquarters, we have Lobo basically saying, "Welcome to the Hall of Lowered Expectations." Which is kind of funny. But I think this is also, Steve Orlando kind of doing a play on words, because I imagine a lot of people probably didn't really look at the Justice League of America team as something that was important. I mean, Justice League International was a lot of the same way, but people used to look at JLA, people would look at the JLA concept and say, this is a poor man's Justice League. This is just, this is the Kmart Justice League, which I guess is not really, it's not really true, to be honest. I mean, it's still a team in and of itself, but the idea here is that is Batman basically coming together and saying, look, there are threats that are going to come here. And when those threats are going to impact Earth, what people need is the ability to rally around humans, not gods, not Superman, not kings of Atlantis, not Green Lanterns. They need human beings, tangible things, people that they could say, that person's just like me, except maybe they've got some powers. That's Batman's aim here. And that's what he says. We are basically going to inspire people. We're going to inspire humanity. We're going to be the good guys. We're going to work through inspiring people to view something better, as opposed to simply looking up to us as gods and so on and so forth. Now, of course, Batman's also kind of playing both sides because he is still on the Justice League. So, he's being smart about it, but again, it's really kind of his own team. And this is basically DC setting the stage for building things up. And that's what I hope you guys are noticing when it comes to the DC universe, is they're building things up. The Green Lantern Corps is expanding. Numbers are being built. Ranks are being expanded. And the idea that somewhere down the line, we're probably going to see this massive battle that takes place, and we're going to need as many superheroes as we could possibly get together in order to face off against whatever that threat may be, Dr. Manhattan or, Mr. Oz or what have you. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.